Awesome. As we let people roll in, we are also connecting to LinkedIn Live, and that takes a few minutes to buffer. So we will just let people roll in. Welcome and thank you for joining. Hi, Garland.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm good. You know this, but just so everybody joining knows, I'm also getting over the flu. I'm very excited to be here today, and I'm glad that I'm on the upswing, but I might need to pause to cough every now and then. So please bear with me if that
Well, I'm
happens.
glad you're able to make it, and thank you for pushing through.
Yeah, of course.
All right, couple of housekeeping things as people continue to come on in. First off, as I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded. So if you had a colleague register but unable to come, no problem. They will get this recording in their inbox later this week, which is a great resource. And then also, we are going to be gathering questions. So if you have a question pop up, during the webinar, just pop them in the chat or LinkedIn live chat. We'll gather those too, or save them for the end, either way, but we will have time. This kicks off our EFI Sustainability mini series. My name is Madelyn Edlin. I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Equitable Food Initiative, or EFI, and I'm excited to lead this sustainability mini series, which we are I think Alexander's going to put a link in the chat to where you can find more. We're having some come up with more partners in the future, and it's exciting. But today, I am joined by Garland Perkins, who is the Director of Innovation and Sustainability at Oppy. Oppy really is the leader in a commitment to people, profit, planet, and innovation. And at the lead of this charge, you find Garland, who's also just a lovely person. And anytime I get to interact with you is just a pleasure. So thank you and welcome.
Well, thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
Awesome. We're going to kick right off and just dive right in. We're only here for 30 minutes, so let's make the most of it. First question for you, Garland.
hmm
Let's start with your perspective on why a people-centric approach is essential for sustainability in our produce industry.
Well, I think, historically we think about it, or we thought about it more as kind of a marketing function, kind of a feel-good story that would really just help a produce company's brand reputation and potentially consumer perception. But obviously that has dramatically changed in the last 3 years. And so, I'm sure many people have kind of heard this comparison, but it's really gone from kind of a marketing function of the business to compliance. And we, have often compared it to food safety as, kind of being a nice to have and then being just kind of a necessary part of doing business. And we see sustainability following a very similar trajectory, although one that seems to be evolving at a very rapid pace.
Yeah, always shifting, always changing.
hmm hmm Yeah, absolutely.
Makes it an exciting, never a dull moment for you, I imagine.
Yes, yes, very true. Very true. Very stimulating.
Amazing. So it's clear to me and how I've seen your work evolve that people drive meaningful change. So
hmm
can we talk about how operations can take actionable steps towards bringing these values into their strategy of this people-centric approach in sustainability?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of bringing it into the strategy, 3 years ago, I guess, yeah, it was a little bit over 3 years ago, we created a new sustainability strategy for Oppy. And that strategy has been completely embedded in the company's overall strategy since then. And so, the process that we took to do that is number one, our president at the time, David Smith, he gave me some really valuable direction that basically said, be authentic. I don't want to do anything in this space that's kind of just for show. I know that we need to do more, but I want to do stuff that we're actually capable of doing. And so we really kind of use that as kind of the guiding principle. And so first we kind of looked at the landscape and said, okay, what does sustainability even mean? And what does this mean to Oppie? And thankfully these days it's gotten at least a little bit clearer in kind of these big topic areas, carbon emissions, social responsibility, et cetera. And then so within these topics, okay, which ones are most relevant to us? And then what can we realistically achieve in each of these? And then, kind of prioritizing those was really based on the requirements, either from our customers, what they were either hoping to see from us or actually telling us we needed to do, or legislation that was coming into play. And so that really kind of laid the groundwork for, the last 3 years, and we've made a lot of progress on those things, and now we're starting to chip away at kind of those bigger picture objectives, those 5 to 10 year, kind of more forward thinking, more complex initiatives.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere and then you get into that bigger picture, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you, this is off but what I was going to ask you, but what
Sure.
when you look at something as like, okay, we have 2 years, we have 5 years, and we have a 10 year. How do you approach something and like create a digestible pieces in those larger plans?
Yeah. Well, Oppy, it has an amazing strategic planning process for the entire company. And so, we sit down as a management group, kind of led by the leadership of the company, and every area of the business has kind of their annual goals, and
Mm,
they're all kind of guided by our strategic pillars as a company. And so, yeah, I mean, the way that I've approached it for sustainability, you could do so much for sustainability. It's really about what do we need to do and what's most pressing. And so we kind of have our eye on the 5 to 10, and every year at our strategic planning meeting, that end of my presentation is, and remember, here's like our big picture goals, but the bulk of that presentation is, here's what we're going to do in the next year, and here's the month that we're going to achieve this by. So it's just about breaking it down to really more legitimately feasible steps in the next year to 18 months, and then kind of having your eye on that big picture. And a lot of times, if it's a big picture project in 5 years, it's like, okay, well, in the next year, can I just do research that will help me at least find a company that can help me with this big picture goal, or something even as small as that, at least it's progress.
right. So that it's always on the top of mind. Well, thank you for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's three key tactics that I want our attendees to walk away with. And the first one I am calling embed social responsibility into a sustainability plan. So can you share how companies can align social responsibility with their sustainability initiatives? Sometimes there's one, sometimes there's the other. How can those two work together in harmony?
Yeah, well, for Oppy, we really view social responsibility as a key pillar of our sustainability strategy. So to me, I don't think that they should be too separate in a business. I think that there's way too much overlap, that you really need to have the same person or the same team managing those. And then in terms of kind of aligning the initiatives of both of them, they're usually very complementary. You might have a social responsibility certification, for example,
Yeah.
that also has some environmental aspects of that certification covers, so you can kind of use it on both sides. So yeah, I would say, just practically speaking, have the same people managing it, and
Mm,
make sure that even if it's not the same people, that whoever's working on it is in very good communication, and they're kind of working off of the same blueprint, because it needs to be kind of a part of the overall sustainability strategy.
interesting that, yeah. And I'm curious how often it is separate people or it's just one person. I know, like, especially when you're talking about smaller operations, could be the one person running everything,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and with sustainability, I mean, it's changed so quickly, and I think it's still hard for a lot of produce companies to justify hiring somebody to manage this,
Yeah.
even if it's somebody part-time, or if you bring in an outside resource, part-time. The reality is, you do need somebody who is at least one person who is absorbing all these new requirements, who's keeping, kind of their finger on the pulse of what's to come, because there are very real impacts to the business now, and even more to come. So it's definitely something that requires a new resource.
Yeah, no, that's a great perspective. So, my perspective coming from EFI, we're all about people and how people
Mhm.
can create change and workforce can create change. So, tactic number two, I am calling engage and empower your workforce. So, what role do you see employees playing in advancing a sustainability strategy?
Yeah, so this is something we've talked about a lot at Oppy. Sustainability is really interesting in that it absolutely requires a cross-functional approach to maintain or to achieve progress, and that can so really it's a matter of taking people who have very clear day jobs, and adding on this new
Mm,
aspect of sustainability, that you need their expertise or their data in order to achieve progress. And Some very kind of like small examples are, I work with someone on our accounting team who helps me with specific sustainability data collection and reporting. There's a lot of, things that are kind of getting closer between the finance world and sustainability. And so they help me on some data collection and analysis. I work with our transportation and logistics team on our SmartWay certification, which we've achieved 2 years in a row. But requires a lot of data and communication with their team on that. I work with our operations team on our food waste data collection and analysis. So it's just really a matter of asking people to do new things that weren't typically a part of their job before. I'm really fortunate at Oppy that people tend to have a very kind of can-do attitude, and actually a lot of them care about sustainability a lot on the personal side, and so they're kind of excited to get involved. And then our marketing team has been very, very helpful in kind of educating internally, what sustainability means to Oppy, why we need to be doing these things, kind of these new requirements, and what this means for the business. And I think they've just done a really good job at helping our employees know why this new area of the business is growing, what it means, which then in turn, kind of creates this engagement and willingness for people to participate and help.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to ask because, like you said in the beginning, sometimes it's seen as like this marketing initiative, this nice to have,
Mhm.
becoming more and more a critical thing. And so when you're asking really busy people who run logistics or accounting to help you with something, getting that buy-in is critical.
Mhm.
So that's a really cool success story. All right. Tactic number 3, I am calling collaborating within the supply chain and among peers. This is something that I was super inspired when I saw you speak at CPMA in 2024, and your ability to collaborate amongst peers and with other stakeholders within the produce industry. And so, how can companies work with growers and partners to amplify their impact within social responsibility and sustainability?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll start with the peers aspect. That's been so valuable to me personally over the last few years. And I always like to say I'm a produce person that's becoming an ESG person, not the other way around. And so, when I was starting out in this space, I wasn't a sustainability expert, nor do I pretend to be now. And I really welcomed kind of learning from people who are already doing it really well. And so, people like Wyatt Macy from Taylor, um, um, uh, my gosh, John Vandenberg. I'm forgetting my names here, but people have been so helpful and willing to share their resources, share things that they've learned. And another thing that I've gotten a lot out of was industry committees like the IFPA Sustainability Committee. The CPMA is just starting a sustainability committee. The interesting thing about sustainability at this point is a lot of people are in similar boats in that it's not like produce. It hasn't been around for forever. And so
Right.
a lot of people are trying to figure it out. So there's a lot of willingness to kind of trade information, trade resources, and that's just been so helpful as we've been on our journey of sustainability. In terms of our growers, there are a lot of things that we do right now to report that already require a lot of data throughout the supply chain. And so we are just getting to the point where I think we're about to figure out some ways to streamline that process. Up until now, it's been very much kind of case by case, project by project, lots of emails, lots of phone calls, reaching out to growers to get data from them. And I think at the more at the beginning, the first thing we wanted to do is, we held a couple internal webinars for our growers, meetings at some trade shows and things, really just to help them understand what this space is. Why is this a thing? What are these requirements? How does this impact you? But then second, we tried to find opportunities of kind of mutual benefit. So if there
Mm,
were things that they were already doing, helping, to celebrate that and quantify that
yeah.
in order to help us all in our reporting. And Project Gigaton for Walmart, for example, you can report on sustainability progress throughout your supply chain. So an example are we have some of our growers in Chile who have installed solar installations, and those energy savings, are the energy savings are then kind of reflected throughout that entire supply chain. So
Yeah.
by being communication with them and being able to measure their energy savings, we're able to report on that in Project Gigaton. So that's kind of where we are at this point. But again, it's been very case by case, and I wouldn't say very streamlined. But thankfully, there are new platforms, new softwares that are coming into the market. So many these days. Measure to Improve, who's a sustainability consultant just for fresh produce, they're actually debuting a new software in April that we're very keen to look into specifically to try to fix this issue of
Okay.
having so much redundancy and kind of case by case and streamlining some of that. So I think we're finally getting to a point where streamlining is going to become much more common in the years ahead. But up until now, it's been very very much kind of a case by case.
Feel like that's how it is with anything new, that it's like, hey,
Yes,
there's this new thing, we're gonna throw it at you, and you're like, okay,
yes,
we're gonna figure
yes.
it out.
Mhm,
We love Measure to Improve. They're amazing. And I believe Alexandra dropped a link to their website in the chat if you want to find out more about them and this
mhm.
upcoming product, which is very exciting. Amazing. As I mentioned at the beginning, pop questions in as you have them in the chat. We're about to pop into Q&A time, which I think is the richest time of the webinar. So yeah, let's get that going. It looks like we have one coming in. Yeah, this is a great one. How do you balance environmental and social initiatives within your sustainability plan? You've touched on this a little bit, but I think it's that, yeah, that balance.
Yeah, I think I mean we always prioritize, what is the most pressing in terms of either legislation that's going to impact the business
Mhm.
or what our retailers are requiring. So I think it really just goes back to that strategic planning process. If you look at kind of, what you're really capable of, what's impacting your business, and then what's the most pressing, then I think naturally that helps you to kind of balance, your environmental with social in addition to kind of just your daily business operations. Um, One thing I did want to point out though is, when you think about the importance of sustainability and how it contributes to kind of financial longevity as well as environmental sustainability, with sustainability and social responsibility, we all inherently know, it's the right thing to do, right? But in order to really make it practical for a business to be able to pursue, you have to kind of understand the why from the business side, why it makes sense for business. And so for all of these things, having a solid sustainability strategy as that incorporates social responsibility and most importantly progress, there's so many, business benefits that come from that.
Yeah.
Attracting outside investors, that's one of the top things that they look for these days. Another thing is higher employee engagement and retention and attracting talent. My VP of HR has been telling me at least for 3 years that one of the main things people ask about when they're interviewing for a job at Oppy is about sustainability.
Really?
Yeah, particularly for young people, it's
Yeah.
something that they're very interested in. So it's definitely a part of kind of, our brand as a company, and why that's valuable. And then, we have a lot of wonderful programs, whether it's our Adopt a Highway program in Peru that basically helped spark a waste infrastructure for a lot of trash that was on the side of the roads in one of the communities that we grow in, that's now thankfully almost completely self-sustaining, which is great.
Wow.
Either that or some of our social responsibilities like fair trade or EFI social certification programs. The more our employees learn about these things, the more it makes their job feel meaningful. And
Mm,
we've had that communicated to us, to our marketing team, to our HR, to our sustainability team countless times. And I think it just helps, if I'm an accountant, at my office in Vancouver in British Columbia, when I see the social impact that Oppy's business has on a global
yeah.
scale,
Yeah.
it really brings even more meaning into the work that you're doing on a daily basis. So we've just had some really amazing things kind of come out of that from like the employee kind of feel good meeting side as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's such a great byproduct of,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
What advice do you have for smaller companies who are starting their journey in sustainability?
Yeah, it can feel really overwhelming. I think thankfully there's a lot more tools and resources out there now. I know SEPC is hosting a kind of sustainability essentials webinar series right now. The CPMA is also holding a sustainability education workshop the day before the convention in April. So
Mhm.
those would be kind of tangible things that you could do in the meantime.
Yeah.
But I would say in general, we're lucky that we're in the fresh produce industry. So most fresh produce companies, if not all, are already doing a lot of things in the realm
Totally.
of sustainability. They probably just don't have a way of quantifying it. So, I would do a similar exercise like I mentioned that we did at Oppy. Number one, what are the buckets that impact you? Waste, people, packaging. Probably these, 4 or 5 buckets that are kind of the major buckets in sustainability. Which ones impact your business the most, or which ones do you realistically have any ability to do anything about? And then within each of those, okay, what are our customers asking of us? Are there any new laws that we need to pay attention to? And then from there, pretty easily you can kind of craft at least your first year strategy. And then the more that you go along, and we found with Oppie, you start building on that, and then you bring in new tools and resources. So it's kind of an organic process. But I think for smaller companies, number one, don't be overwhelmed. You just got to start somewhere and find something that's realistically achievable for your company in the near term. And then again, find some sort of resource. Even if it's somebody who's part-time on your team or bringing in an outside resource, you do need to start having a plan for this area of the business.
Yeah, that's what I've loved seeing over and over in the fresh produce industry is there things this is happening. Like sustainability
Mhm.
initiatives are so natural to those who are growing our food. And it's just finding it and measuring it and telling the story oftentimes. And yeah, so it's there. Find the nugget.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Um, okay, this is great and hits home for me coming from EFI. Are sustainability and social responsibility initiatives always costly? It seems like everything is a certification and costs thousands of dollars to get started. What are some ways we can start small? You touched on this a lot, but I think when you look at fresh produce, social responsibility and sustainability initiatives, the first things that come up are those fair trades, those EFIs, and those are not
Mhm.
kick off. So, anything to add to the starting small?
Yeah. So, one of my, favorite examples that I always like to share with this is at the beginning of, kind of our sustainability strategy, one of our key pillars is decreasing waste. And so
Mm,
to do that, first of all, you have to understand your waste. And we have an excellent ERP system. And so we had that data, meaning the food that was either lost through reconditioning or repack or dump at our cold storage facilities. So we already had that, but having this new kind of sustainability reporting aspect kind of
mm,
helped or made us have more eyes on it. In addition to that, there was a new law at the time in California, SB 1383, that
remember.
yes, that fines companies like Oppy for sending food waste to the landfill.
Yep.
So number one, just the process of kind of understanding our ways, informed us to how much waste was at those California facilities, in particular. And then when we did more research, we realized even though we were using a local waste vendor, like that was contracted through the city, the waste
Yep.
was going to the landfill.
Oh,
And so we found a different waste vendor who now processes all of that waste into animal feed. We also created some new partnerships like with Food Forward, who repurposes edible food that's not sold that can be used for human donation. And just through using the new waste vendor alone, we cut our costs by 30%.
wow.
And it's, obviously and so much better for the environment by
Yeah.
going to animal feed, but we also cut costs by using a new vendor, and obviously, happy to be able to donate to entities like Food Forward. But then
Yeah.
overall, just through that exercise, we've decreased our overall food waste from all those facilities combined by over 100%.
Oh my gosh.
And that, yeah, and it's huge. And that's only, within 3 years. And a lot of that's just, and of course, it's fresh produce, right? So there's markets, there's, seasonality. One season might have had a tough weather, event or things of that nature. But it's also new processes, new procedures. So, in that aspect, we saved money. So that's, kind of a high, a win that I like to celebrate. But the reality is a lot of these initiatives can be costly, and there's audit fatigue is a real thing, and Oppie is definitely a part of that, as our growers. So I think one good note is there are new initiatives that are beginning to come out, like ESIP, which you can elaborate on, the Ethical Charter Implementation Program, that are trying to kind of mitigate this audit fatigue and still, promote improvement and progress, but not, for thousands of dollars and an audit. And I think, you'll see more of that on the environmental side coming from produce as well. And then in the very near term, I would say, what we try to do and advise our growers is we just try to be practical, right? Like there are a handful of retailers that are requiring an integrated pest management certification, for example. And we've advised a lot of our growers who already have a certain level of global gap to just increase their level of global gap that includes IPM. So it's not, reinventing the wheel. They're working with the same auditor, and they likely are already using IPM practices. It's just a matter of validating them. And then, if you're being asked, all the time for audits, I would look at all my, my major customers who represent the majority of my business, which are the certifications that they all accept, so obviously go with the ones that are going to get you the biggest bang for the buck. But long term, the industry does need to do a better job of getting more streamlined on the audit side. That is a very difficult area for marketers and growers at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
And Alexandra put in the chat the website for ESIP's Ethical Charter Implementation Program, which is powered by EFI. We own the tech behind it. That's all the questions we've gotten so far. If you have any y'all that come up as we close out, feel free to pop them in and we'll answer them. We have a few minutes left. But thank you, Garland, so much for coming. Your insights are always so tangible and powerful, and it's always great to have you. I am going to put a little plug. We are doing Sustainability 101, which is a multi-day course here at EFI. And I think the biggest thing that people come out of that course with is the camaraderie and the ability to talk to other people working in
Yes.
this space, along with other great tangible ways to move your sustainability program forward within your
Mhm.
company. So that registration link is in the chat, and it's a great opportunity. And I think the early bird discount ends March 14th. So it's coming up here. Keep that on the radar. Any last thoughts, Garland, before we close out?
No, no, thank you so much for the opportunity. This was great.
Great. Well, everybody have a great day, and we'll be back soon.
Okay, thanks.